plunged his gaze into the siege of mist, as when a searchlight stabs the night's blind breast, and dwellings and trees and figures of men appear, as if revealed, denied in nothingness. All lurking seas were torn out of their veils and held up in his vision's sun-white blaze.
Good morning, everyone. We're in Book 2, beginning Canto 5. We're following King Aswapati's journey through the inner worlds. After being introduced to Savitri in the first couple of cantos of the poem, we were introduced to King Aswapati and his sadhana, his yoga, which proceeded through several cantos in which he attained a very high level of realization. And he's turned his gaze within and is looking at the inner worlds, a hierarchy of inner worlds that range from matter, subtle matter, up to the pure spirit. He's looking for the key to earth nature's change and transformation, to relieve it of its suffering and death and pain. And as he proceeds through these inner worlds, he starts from the lower levels first of subtle matter, a kingdom of the inner planes, which is very close to the earth, to physical matter. And we explored that realm with him. And from there, he moved upwards to the first emergence of life within matter. And we saw that in the last canto. And there were a few different levels of that, kind of the first stirrings of life within matter as it just begins to emerge out of the physical, to the life energy, the life world of animals, the first beginnings of a sense mind that begins to perceive things outside of itself, to register those contacts, to react, to respond to those contacts. And then a somewhat higher level of life that is more mental, approaching the human level, but not quite yet a reflective human mind. So the first beginnings of human beings, we can imagine, were like that, our ancestors. And now he was exploring that realm, and now he looks a little bit more deeply into this same realm of the little life and begins to perceive the beings, that people that live in that inner world. So that's what we'll be reading about today. And typically what we do is we read through without stopping the canto or a portion of the canto. I think we'll just go through half of the canto today, and then we go back and explore it in more detail, passage by passage. So we'll just begin reading through the poem. And Suresh, would you like to begin?
The goddess of the little life, her fixed and narrow, power with rigid forms. He saw the empire of the little life, an unhappy corner in eternity. It lived upon the margin of the idea, protected by ignorance as in a shell, then hoping to learn the secret of this world. He peered across its scanty fringe of sight to
Disengage.
disengage from its surface cleared obscurity. The force that moved it and the idea that made, imposing smallness on the infinite, the ruling spirit of its littleness, the divine law that gave its right to be, its calm on nature and its need in time. He plunged his gaze into the siege of mist that held this till it lit,
Straightened.
stranded continent, fringed with the skies and the seas of ignorance, and kept it safe from truth and self and light.
Thank you. Sohini, would you like to continue?
As when a searchlight stabs the night's blind breast, and dwellings and trees and figures of men appear, as if revealed to an eye in nothingness. All lurking things were torn out of their veils and held up in his vision's sun-white place. A busy, restless, uncouth populace teemed in their dusky, unnoted thousands there. In a mist of secrecy wrapping the world scene, the little deities of time's nether act, who work remote from heaven's controlling eye, plotted, unknown to the creatures whom they move, the small conspiracies of this pretty reign, amused with the small contrivings, the brief hopes and little eager steps and little ways, and reptile wallowings in the dark and dust, and the crouch and ignominy of creeping life. A trepidant and motley multitude, a strange pell-mell of magic artisans, was seen moulding the plastic clay of life, an elfin brood, an elemental kind. Astonished by the unaccustomed glow, as if immanent in the shadow started up, imps and wry limbs and craved best visages, sprite prompters, goblin wizened or fairy small, and
Genie.
genie fairer, but unsouled and poor, and fallen beings, their heavenly portion lost, and errant divinities trapped in time's dust.
Thank you. B?
Ignorant and dangerous wills, but armed with power, half animal, half God, half animal, half God their mood, their shape. Out of the grayness of a dim background, their whispers come, an inarticulate force, awaken mind, an echoing thought or word. To their sting of impulse the hearer sanction draw, and in that little nature do their work, and fill its powers and creatures with unease. Its seed of joy they curse, with sorrow's fruit, put out with error's breath its scanty lights, and turn its surface truth to falsehood's end. Its small emotions spur, its passions drive to the abyss, or through the fog and mire, or else with a goad of hard, dry lusts they prick, while jogs of on devious ways that nowhere lead. Life's cart finding no issue from ignorance, sport with good and evil is their law, luring to failure and meaningless success. All models they corrupt, all measures cheat, make knowledge a poison, virtue a pattern dull, and lead the endless cycles of desire through semblances of sad or happy chance to an inescapable fatality.
Thank you. Ronnie?
All by their influence is enacted there. Not there alone is their empire or their role. Wherever are soulless minds and guideless lives, and in a small body self is all that counts. Wherever love and light and largeness lack, these crooked fashioners take up their task. To all half-conscious worlds they extend their reign. Here too these godlings drive our human hearts. Our nature's twilight is their lurking place. Here too the darkened primitive heart obeys the veiled suggestions of a hidden mind that dogs our knowledge with misleading light and stands between us and the truth that saves. It speaks to us with the voices of the night. Our darkened lives to greater darkness move. Our seekings listen to calamitous hopes. A structure of unseeing thoughts is built, and reason used by an irrational force.
Thank you. Artem?
This earth is not alone. Our teacher and nurse, the powers of all the world have entrance here. In their own fields they follow the wheels of law and cherish the safety of a settled type. On earth, out of their changeless orbit thrown. Their law is kept, lost their fixed form of things. Into a creative chaos they are cast, where all ask order but is driven by the chance. Strangers to Earth's nature, they must learn Earth's ways. Aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle and with pain agree. This join those all parts and joins in you. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony. Our lives uncertain way winds circling on. Our minds unquiet search ask always light, till they have learned their secret in their source. In the light of the timeless and its spaceless home, in the joy of eternal soul and one. But now the light supreme is far away. Our conscious life obeys the unconscious law. To ignorant purpose and blind desires, our hearts are moved by an ambiguous force. Even our minds conquest wear a battered crown. A slowly changing order blinds our will. This is our doom until our souls are free. A mighty hand then rolls mind's firmament back. Infinity takes up the finite acts, and nature steps in the eternal light. There then only ends this dream of nether life.
Thank you. Sudanya.
At the outset of this enigmatic world, which seems at once an enormous brute machine and a slow unmasking of the spirit in things, in this revolving chamber without walls, in which God sits impassive everywhere, as if unknown to himself and by us unseen. In a miracle of inconscient secrecy, yet is all here his action and his will. In this world and sprawls through infinite vacancy, the spirit became matter and lay in the world, the body sleeping without sense or soul, a mass phenomenon of visible shapes supported by the silence of the void, appear in the eternal consciousness and seem an outward and insensible world. There was none there to see and none to feel. Only the miraculous inconscient, the subtle wizard skill was at its task, inventing ways for magical result, managing creation's marvelous device, marking mechanically dumb wisdom's point, using the unthought inevitable idea. It did the works of God's intelligence, or wrought the will of some supreme unknown.
Thank you. Nari.
Still, consciousness was hidden in nature's womb. Unfelt was the bliss whose rapture dreamed the worlds. Being was an inert substance driven by force. At first was only an etheric space. Its huge vibrations circled round and round, housing some unconceived initiative, upheld by a supreme original breath. Expansion and contraction's mystic act created touch and friction in the world, in the void, into abstract emptiness brought clash and clasp. Parent of an expanding universe in a matrix of disintegrating force, by spending it conserved an endless sum. On hearth of space is kindled a viewless fire that, scattering worlds as one might scatter seeds, whirled out the luminous order of the stars. An ocean of electric energy formlessly formed its strange wave particles, constructing by the dance this solid scheme, its mightiness in the atom shut to rest. Masses were forced or faint and visible shapes. Light flung the photon's swift revealing spark and showed, in minuteness of its flash, imaged this cosmos of parent things.
Thank you. Next. Would you read?
Thus has been made this real and possible world, an obvious miracle of convincing show, or so it seems to man's audacious mind, who sees his thought as the arbiter of truth, his personal vision as impersonal fact, as witnesses of an objective world, his erring sense and his instrument's artifice. Thus must be works life's tangible riddle out, in a doubtful light, by error seize on truth, and slowly part the visage and the veil, or else, forlorn of faith in mind and sense, is knowledge a bright body of ignorance. He sees in all things strangely fashioned here the unwelcome jest of a deceiving force, a parable of Maya and her might.
Thank you. Eva?
This vast perpetual motion caught and held in the mysterious and unchanging change of the persistent movement we call time, and ever renewing its recurrent beat. These mobile rounds that stereotype a flux, these static objects in the cosmic dance that are but an energy's self-repeating worlds, prolonged by the spirit of the brooding void, awaited life and sense and waking mind. A little the dreamer changed his pose of stone, but when the unconscious scrupulous work was done, and chance coerced by fixed immutable laws, the scene was set for nature's conscious play, then stirred the spirit's mute immobile sleep. The force concealed broke dumbly, slowly out. A dream of living woke in matter's heart. A will to live moved in conscience dust. A freak of living startled back in time. Ephemeral in a blank eternity. Infinitesimal in a dead infinite.
Thank you. Next. Would you read?
A subtler breath quickened dead matter's forms. The world's set rhythm changed to a conscious cry. A serpent power twinned the insensible force. Island of living dotted lifeless space, and germs of living formed in formless air. A life was born that followed matter's law, ignorant of the motives of its steps, ever inconstant, yet forever the same. It repeated the paradox that gave it birth, its restless and unstable stabilities, recurred insensibly in the flow of time, and purposeful movements in unthinking forms. Betrayed the heavings of an imprisoned will. Waking and sleep lay locked in mutual arms. Helpless and indistinct came pleasure and pain. Trembling with the first faint thrills of a world soul, a strength of life that could not cry or move, yet broke into beauty, signing some deep delight, an inarticulate sensibility. Throbs of the heart of an unknowing world ran through its somnolent torpor and there stirred a vague, uncertain thrill, a wandering beat, a dim unclosing as of secret eyes.
Thank you.
Infant self-feeling grew and birth was born. A Godhead woke, but lay with dreaming limbs. Her house refused to open its sealed doors. Insentient to our eyes that only see the form, the act, and not the imprisoned God. Life hid in her pulse occult of growth and power. A consciousness with mute stifled beats of sense. A mind suppressed that knew not yet of thought, an inert spirit that could only be. At first, she raised no voice, no motion dared. Charged with word power, instinct with living force. Only she clung with her roots to the safe earth, thrilled dumbly to the shocks of ray and breeze, and put out tendril fingers of desire. The strength in her yearning for sun and light felt not the embrace that made her breathe and live. Absorbed, she dreamed content with beauty and you. At last, the charmed immensity looked forth. A stir, vibrant, hungering, she groped for mine. Then, slowly sense quivered and thought peered out. She forced the reluctant mold to grow aware.
Thank you. $157. The magic.
The magic was chiseled of a conscious form. Its trance vibrations rhythmed a quick response, and luminous stirrings prompt brain and nerve. Awoke in matter's spirit's identity, and in a body lit, the miracle of the heart's love and the soul's witness gaze. Impelled by an unseen will, there could break out fragments of some vast impulse to become and vivid glimpses of a secret self, and the doubtful seeds and force of shapes to be awoke from the inconscient swoon of things. An animal creation crept and ran and flew and cawed between the earth and sky, hunted by death, but hoping still to live and glad to breathe, if only for a while. Then man was molded from the original brute. A thinking mind had come to lift life's moods, the keen-edged tool of a nature mixed and vague, an intelligence half witness, half machine.
Thank you. Next. Then Ganga Lakshmi.
This seems driver on a well of work. No. This seems driver of a well of work. Mission to motive and record your grief, and fix its law on a inconstant power. This master spring of a delicate
engineering, aspire to enlighten its user and refine, lifting to a vision of the unveiling power. The absorbed mechanic crude initiative erase his eyes, even light mirrored the face. The maze at work grew in her mystic sleep. She looked upon the world that she had made. Wondering now sees the Greek automaton. She paused to understand herself and aim. Pondering, she learned to act by conscious rule. A visionary measure guided her rhythmic steps. Thought, border instinct with a frame of veil, and lead with the idea of blinding urge.
Thank you. Nitya.
On her mass of impulses, her reflex acts, on the inconscience pushed or guided drift, in mystery of unthinking, accurate steps, she stuck the specious image of herself, a living idol of disfigured spirit. On matter's acts she imposed a patterned law. She made a thinking body from chemic cells and molded a being out of a driven force. To be what she was not inflamed her hope. She turned her dream towards some high unknown. A breath was felt below of one supreme. An opening looked up to spheres above, and colored shadows limed on mortal ground. The passing figures of immortal things. A quick celestial flash could sometimes come. The illumined soul ray fell on heart and flesh and touched with semblances of ideal light, the stuff of which our earthly dreams are made.
Thank you.
Fragile human love that could not last, ego's moth wings to lift the seraph soul appeared, a surface glamour of brief date extinguished by a scanty breath of time. Joy that forgot mortality for a while came, a rare visitor who left betimes and made all things seem beautiful for an hour. Hopes that soon fade to drab realities, and passions that crumble to ashes while they blaze, kindled the common earth with their brief flame. The creature, insignificant and small, visited, uplifted by an unknown power. Man labored on his little patch of earth for means to last, to enjoy, to suffer and die. The spirit that perished not with the body and breath was there like a shadow of the unmanifest, and stood behind a little personal form, but claimed not yet this earthly embodiment. Assenting to nature's long, slow-moving toil, watching the works of his own ignorance, unknown, unfelt, the mighty witness lives, and nothing shows the glory that is here. Wisdom governing the mystic world, the silence listening to the cry of life. It sees the hurrying crowd of moments stream towards the still greatness of a distant hour.
Thank you. Now, let's go back to the beginning of the canto, and we'll read passage by passage. So back to page 151. And Helmut, you can begin.
A fixed and narrow power with rigid forms, he saw the empire of the little life, an unhappy corner in eternity. It lived upon the margin of the idea, protected by ignorance as in a shell. Then, hoping to learn the secret of this world, he peered across its scanty fringe of sight to disengage from its surface-clear obscurity the force that moved it and the idea that made, imposing smallness on the infinite, the ruling spirit of its littleness, the divine law that gave it right to be, its claim on nature and its need in time.
Thank you. So the opening lines is kind of a transition from the previous canto, which was describing this world in general terms. So he's looking at this empire of the little life, which he describes as an unhappy corner in eternity. He says it lived upon the margin of the idea. Perhaps this means on the edge of thought, before thought becomes fully formed, just on the edge of the mind. Protected by ignorance as in a shell. So it lives within this shell of ignorance. Then Aswapati, hoping to learn the secret of this world, peers across its scanty fringe of sight, its limited vision, its limited sight, to disengage from its surface clear obscurity. Kind of a contradiction in terms here, but on the surface it may be clear, but yet it's obscure, it's unknowing, unaware, ignorant, even though on the surface it appears clear. To disengage the force that moved it and the idea that made it, imposing smallness on the infinite, the ruling spirit of its littleness. He's trying to understand why this world of ignorant life was permitted by the divine, what place it has in the overall scheme of the universe. the divine law that gave it right to be, its claim on nature and its need in time.
What exactly the Godhead means in general? Is it quite often?
The Godheads of the little life.
Just the Godhead word.
Yeah. I think it can mean different things. Often it means a being at the top of a realm. But here, these Godheads, it's just referring, I think, to these beings that live in this world, that people this world. And we had some description of it. We went through kind of quickly these imps and genie and kind of little demons that live there. So he's referring to those beings of this realm. Why he calls them Godheads, I'm not sure, but he calls the beings of the various worlds Godheads.
It can also mean higher than human beings also, in general. Generally when we use Godhead, like beings higher than the human beings who influence the human beings.
Yeah, they do. They're beings that are invisible to us, and yet they influence us. So in that sense, they are kind of Godheads to us, but they only instigate kind of negative kind of behaviors.
But they don't evolve.
But they don't evolve. They live in this realm eternally, we had read last time.
They can have positive influence also, either way.
Potentially, depending on the realm, depending on the being. So, Turia, could you continue?
Which line, 14?
Yes.
He plunged his gaze into the siege of mist that held this ill-lit, straitened continent, ringed with the skies and seas of ignorance, and kept it safe from truth and self and light. As when a searchlight stabs the night's blind breast, and dwellings and trees and figures of men appear, as if revealed to an eye in nothingness. All lurking things were torn out of their veils and held up in his vision's sun-white blaze. A busy, restless, and uncouth populace teemed in their dusky, unnoted thousands there.
Thank you. Let's pause. So in Aswapati's effort to understand the place and purpose of this world, He searches, he plunges his gaze into the mist, and then, as if a searchlight peering into the darkness lights up little figures, and he sees dwellings and trees and figures of men appear in the light of his search. All lurking things were torn out of their veils and held up in his vision's sun-white blaze. Aswapati is dwelling on a very high plane of consciousness, and he's peering down into this dark world near the foundations of life. He's peering into it, and his vision is able to uncover, reveal the figures and beings there in that mist. And he sees a busy, restless, uncouth populace, which were teeming in their dusky, unnoted thousands there. So that place, realm is teeming, it's full of these beings. Uncouth is a word that means strange, lacking polish or grace. Populace is just the population there.
The populace is a bit negative, no?
No, I don't think so. Not negative. It's just, you can say the populace of a particular place. That's the people that live there.
And treated means what more? Straightened.
Straightened. It means constrained in a tight space. Narrow. Now, a few people have come late, so we'll have Paula read next. In a mist of secrecy, that one.
In a mist of secrecy, wrapping the world's scene, the little deities of time's nether act, who work remote from heaven's controlling eye, plotted, unknown to the creatures whom they move, the small conspiracies of this petty reign, amused with the small contrivings, the brief hopes and little eager steps, and little ways and reptile wallowings in the dark and dust, and the crouch and ignominy of creeping life. A trepidant and motley multitude, a strange pell-mell of magic artisans, was seen molding the plastic clay of life, an elfin brood, an elemental kind. Astonished by the unaccustomed glow, as if imminent in the shadows started up imps with wry limbs and carved beast visages, sprite prompters, goblin wizened or fairy small, and genie fairer but unsouled and poor, and fallen beings, their heavenly portion lost, and errant divinities trapped in time's dust.
Thank you. Aswapati sees these beings living, working, plotting, influencing other beings, unknown to those creatures that they move. And they're occupied with small conspiracies of this petty reign, amused with the small contrivings, the brief hopes that they may stir in people or beings.
What is contrivings?
Clever plans, schemes. So they're scheming, planning, plotting, often just to trip up people or beings in that realm or in our realm, in our world. And they do this for their amusement.
This right promoters? 941.
Sprite prompters. A class of spirits, some good, some evil, supposed to interfere in human affairs. So they're like spirits, I don't know, but they're spelled sprites. Prompters suggest this interference in others' lives, prompting them to do things.
So these Godheads are little deities.
Yeah, but not very divine. They're ignorant, they're occupied with these small little life movements.
And nether act.
Nether is under, low or underground, but low.
It seems there are so many of them, but it seems like there are thousands in there, and there are all of these different kinds of qualities. It seems like such an incredible realm. I mean, we always knew about fairies and elves and things, but there's so many more there. And also these lost souls are there.
Yeah.
So it seems like something
Yes. There's this wide variety of different beings, but mostly they all have that character of being preoccupied with little life movements, tripping up and causing problems, leading to sorrow and suffering often.
But when you tune on to them, you don't tune them, it's fine. But depending on where you tune your senses, your consciousness, then they what you're supposed.
Yeah, when we tune into that realm, become open to it, then they can influence us. We need to shut the door, keep it closed so they don't enter into our own consciousness.
So they're all basically evolved from the divine. There's still a form of the divine, but it's another form.
Right. They're ignorant. They're not aware of the oneness of being like we think of the divine or a divine deity. They're enclosed within a very small consciousness, preoccupied with these little life movements. But they live eternally in that realm.
This line 17, I find it a little joke by Auroville. He says, and kept it safe from truth and light. Ignorance, kept safe.
Keeps it safe from the light.
But it is a small realm. It's a corner in eternity, it's a margin of the idea, it's a scanty fringe. It's a small realm.
Well,
it's in the margins. It's not a part of the main world.
I think Sri Aurobill, in his dealings with people, he places that very much time because it's actually the state we live. It might be we live there. This is the most real part of Savitri that I found. It's the most, you can find it.
It may be a small realm, but it has a large influence here in our world.
And how big is the corner of eternity?
It has its place. It has its place on the
Yes.
And its purpose.
It has its place and purpose, and that's what Aswapati is trying to understand, really.
So we may think, we don't really understand its place, but it has a necessity as part of the creation.
We can imagine that it's a realm that's emerging out of inanimate matter. So compared to inanimate matter, it's quite lively and conscious.
Is this really connected with the magic of these things happening now? People are doing some magic of these things.
Oh, the magic. That may happen. People who do magic may open to this realm and utilize these beings in order to achieve influences over others. That may be.
Black magic.
Wizened means?
Wizened.
Goblin wizened.
I don't know, maybe as if intelligent demons, I think it can also kind of be just in appearance, physical appearance of wrinkled and wise. Yeah, like an old person. Anandi?
Ignorant and dangerous wills but armed with power. Half animal, half God, they move their shape. Out of the gayness, the dim background, their whispers come, an inarticulate force. Awakened mind and echoing through all world. To their sting impels the heart sanction draw. And in the little nurture to their work and feel its power and culture with uneasy. Its seeds of joy they curse with sorrows free, put out with error's breath its scanty life, and turn its surface truth to falsehood's ends. Its small emotions pour its passion drive to the abyss of through the bog and mire, or else with a goat of heart I last their prick, while jogs on devious ways that nowhere lead, life's heart find it, no issue from ignorance.
Thank you. He describes them nicely here in the first lines. Ignorant and dangerous wills, but armed with power. Half animal, half God. Their mood, their shape. So they're quite powerful in the sense, especially in their influence here. They're quite devious in their actions, so they can trick us or the beings in that realm to do things perhaps against their will, what they wouldn't ordinarily do. And he describes how their action comes out of the grayness of a dim background. Their whispers come, an inarticulate force, awake in mind, an echoing thought or word. So we may hear this kind of whispers, suggestions coming into our minds to do this, do that, and echoing, repeating over and over. We may resist 2, 3, 4 times, but it continues, the same thought, the same sound, word coming to us, suggestion. To their sting of impulse, the heart's sanction draw. So they give this impulse, but then they acquire the heart, our heart's sanction to that impulse. We give into it. Yes, I want that too.
But Francis, I tell you something about this line. In the beginning of Auroville, I received some, and I listened. My heart listened. I do. I know is some mistake, but I do. And immediately, when I want to do, Mother intervenes. I tell you, really,
Mother interferes, or
my mother is absolutely incredible experience after that. And many times I again and again, and always Mother with me. Is incredible, incredible. Alors after that I understand what is this adverse forces. When you play, when you're living in the low vital or low, is absolutely mad. But in the beginning I don't read Savitri. I'm working in Agenda of the Mother, I work in many places, you know. But it's incredible now.
it may be that that is what's really needed for us to overcome these things, to have the grace and protection of the Mother.
I want experience. I tell, okay, I try, but Mother don't want at all.
Which line here? Which line? Exactly. Number?
The heart.
To their sting of impulse, the heart's sanction draw.
And as they say, that there's always a battleground between these two forces. So whatever force you feel, that will win ultimately. You tune into the positive force, they will win ultimately. There's always a background, a playground, and a battle going on.
Yeah, but after a long time you distinguish. You know also the face of the people. You play like that, but these are animal or God. Sorry, but it's like that.
And we see the results of their work. They fill its powers and creatures with unease, disturbance. Its seed of joy they curse with sorrow's fruit. You may be attracted to something, it gives us joy, but then afterwards it turns to disappointment, sorrow. Turning surface truths to falsehood's ends. And here, its small emotions spur its passions drive to the abyss, or through the bog and mire, the swamp and the mud.
Bog is one?
Yeah, more or less. Or else with a goad. It's like a prod that we hit an animal with to move it. A bullock, a stick we use. Or else with a goad of hard, dry lusts they prick. While jogs on devious ways that lead nowhere, life's cart, finding no issue from ignorance. keep driving along these same paths that lead nowhere. Over and over again, they keep prodding these same small little life movements. This repetition always of the same thing over and over and over again that really leads nowhere. Nitya.
To sport with good and evil is the law, leading to failure and meaningless success. All models they corrupt, all measures cheats. Make knowledge a poison, virtue a pattern dull, and lead the endless cycles of desire through semblances of sad or happy chance to an inescapable fatality. All by their influence is enacted there, nor there alone is their empire or their role. Wherever our soulless minds and guideless lives, and in a small body self is all that counts, wherever love and light and largeness lack, these crooked fashioners take up their task. To all half-conscious worlds they extend their reign. Here too these godlings drive our human hearts. Our nature's twilight is their lurking place. Here too the dark and primitive heart obeys the veiled suggestions of a hidden mind that docks and knowledge with misleading light and stands between us and the truth that saves.
Thank you.
Basically, it's dealing with human life, not only be the word of the small.
Just pause for a minute and allow people to read it again. So Narayan was suggesting that he's referring mainly to their influence here in our world. But he's saying that they also act there in their world. That world is more or less built upon that principle of these beings, I think, influencing one another, leading all around them in this same pattern. But he says that they extend their influence to other realms besides their own, wherever there is ignorance. In all the ignorant worlds, perhaps, they influence the beings, including our world. For us, what's important is their influence upon us. That's the key thing that we need to take from it. And he emphasizes here, I think, in this passage, the deviousness, the crookedness of their work, that they always are perverting to some evil or unhappy outcome. Things they twist, even truth, even goodness, whatever it might be. They always turn it that it leads into a negative outcome.
Is it a reaction of this whatever love and light and largeness lack?
Yeah, so that's where he's suggesting in whichever realm of the ignorance we may be referring to, they have their influence there. Wherever there's an absence of light, of consciousness, of awareness, of clarity, of purpose, where love is lacking. So in all those realms, they influence the beings. To all half-conscious worlds, they extend their reign, he says. And we have to see that all half-conscious worlds, that's many, many worlds, I think, as we go through The Traveler of the Worlds, this book, most of these worlds are half-conscious. The mental worlds also.
Luring means attracting?
Luring. Yes, you put out something that attracts in order to catch.
Negative sense normally, you use somebody for the bad things. Negative things.
Yeah, put a little food in a trap for a rat or whatever it might be, so that to attract them. Yeah, bait. Baiting is a synonym for that.
It says clearly, nature's twilight is a lucky place. So whenever there is a twilight in our nature, they are hiding there.
Yeah, the twilight is that light and darkness mixture.
So whenever we are doubtful, whenever we
may
found something, glory.
Francis, when I studied with Shravan, always she tell me, change your nature. You have some shadow. Not tell like that, but supranature. But it's very, very interesting. When I started to read Savitri, slowly, I turn. But supranature is very, very important for me. When the low nature change, automatically your consciousness change before consciousness and after your low nature. It's very, very, very interesting. But I remember very, very strong. She tell many, many times, change your nature. It touched me, I tell, I discuss with her about that.
But as Naran was also saying, that there are periods that we go through in which we're maybe tired, or even during sleep, we wake up. In those kind of times when our consciousness is more, the subconscious becomes more active. And there, during those periods, they can have a greater influence, a greater openness to our nature. When we're clear, when we're aspiring, when we're conscious, awake, engaged in some work or activity, then they have less access to us. I think that's partly why Mother often, maybe part of the reason for like the physical education program after, in the evening, she would engage the ashramites in some physical activity, so that they wouldn't just be sitting around home, relaxing, drinking tea or whatever. Because in those periods of relaxation, then these beings can have a greater influence. When we let down our guard.
But the main purpose of physical education in the ashram is to awaken the body consciousness.
Yeah.
The body aspires.
And that too, that our body consciousness, when it's dull, when it's not awake, it's more susceptible also.
Physically active, you engage in mental activities, you turn towards them, you have no focus for anything. You're still connected.
So we'll stop there for today.
he plunged his gaze into the siege of mist, as when a searchlight stabs the night's blind breast, and dwellings and trees and figures of men appear, as if revealed tonight in nothingness. All lurking scenes were torn out of their veils and held up in his vision's sun-white blaze.
Okay, thanks to Sri Aurobindo.